Okay. So then, on behalf of the organization, I'd like to warmly welcome you to this exclusive virtual media briefing on the inaugural GreenWorks for Africa Forum. Our session today will run for 30 minutes, and it's designed to give you a clear introduction to the platform, its purpose, and the value that it will be delivering to the continent. And so we will begin by watching a short introductory video about the forum, and then thereafter, we'll get to hear directly from the co-founder and CEO of Jacob's Ladder Africa, which is the organization that is spearheading this forum, Ms. Stella Bogonko, who will further elaborate on who we are and why we're undertaking this groundbreaking forum and convening in August of this year. Then this will be followed by details on the structure and execution approach of the forum from our head of advocacy. And then after that, we will open the floor for questions from the media, if any. So at this point, I'd just like to cue the video kindly. I know we also don't have that much time. All right, thank you.
Africa's green ambition is clear. Targets have been set, frameworks written, commitments announced. But ambition alone does not create jobs. Across the continent, governments are advancing nationally determined contributions. Financial institutions are structuring climate finance. Development partners are refining transition strategies. Private sector leaders are expanding into green markets. Young Africans are building, innovating, and preparing for opportunity. Yet too often, these efforts move in parallel. Skill systems operate separately from capital flows. Finance is deployed without workforce integration. Policy commitments struggle to translate into market-ready enterprises. The result? Momentum without coordination. Investment without absorption. Training without employment. GreenWorks for Africa was designed to interrupt that pattern. Convened by Jacob's Ladder Africa, this inaugural Pan-African Forum is not a traditional conference. It is a coalition-building platform structured around one principle: evidence before opinion. Each thematic group is anchored in real African case studies, initiatives that have been funded, implemented, tested, challenged, and refined. What worked? What failed? What held? And what can be scaled? We begin with lived implementation. From there, the real work starts. As Africa moves towards hosting COP32, the question is no longer ambition. The question is execution. GreenWorks for Africa is a deliberate effort to connect policy to implementation, capital to skills, and enterprise to market access. The result? A strengthened Pan-African coalition working on green jobs and green skills across regions, across economies, and across sectors. A continent-wide alignment. If you are committed to moving from ambition to execution, this is your room. Join us from the 11th to 13th August 2026 in Nairobi, Kenya. To partner with us, you can reach out via GreenWorks at jacobsladder.africa. GreenWorks for Africa. Because GreenWorks for Africa, when systems work together.
Thank you so very much. And now I'd like to welcome our co-founder and CEO, Stella Bogonko, to give us her remarks. Karibu.
Asante, Melanie. Thanks everyone, and thank you team for making the time. Thank you everyone that's shown up from across Africa. I can see you from Senegal, from different parts of the continent. We appreciate you and we appreciate your time. My name is Stella Bogonko. I'm the co-founder and CEO Jacob's Ladder Africa. And Jacob's Ladder is basically an organization that is based in Nairobi, Kenya. We are a non-profit organization. We focus on solving for two challenges. One is climate change, and then the other one is youth unemployment. A few years ago, we realized that in the midst of everything that's going on, the shift to sustainability, the push for enterprise development, all that, one of the things that was not being addressed, at least not in the speed and manner that is required, was the issue of youth unemployment. And I'll just share some statistics that will help us understand why this topic is very important and why we are focusing on green jobs and amplifying the need for green skills development on the continent. We have about 100, it's said that about 132 young people, or 32 opportunities, or young people, or workforce basically, will enter into the workforce or into the market between 2020 and 2030. And then we need about 15 million formal jobs every single year within that period of time. But we only create as a continent 3 million formal jobs every single year within this particular period that we are talking about. And then on the other hand, we know that Africa is largely informal. And for as long as a continent or workforce is informal, we remain in a situation where we are not creating the best, most decent, most sustainable jobs, because they are not only are they not recognizable or by the regulations of the public regulation system within the country, but they're not able to get the benefits of the support that they would otherwise be able to access if they were formalized. And not just that, but for the most part, we've talked about issues to do with them being not decent jobs, and obviously not able to scale into the place where they're able to access certain kinds of capital or even have the leverage that they would need. And if most of the continent, 80% of it is still informal, then we are dealing with a challenge that needs to be resolved, and resolved quickly, especially if we have a lot of investment going towards education, but still resulting in an informal workforce. And then within that space, again, you have about 10 million young people that are entering the workforce every single year. And so we are consistently dealing with a deficit that is incremental over the years and compounding as we go along. The issue of youth unemployment has been spoken by heads of state, it's been spoken by academia, it's been spoken by development partners, but what is not happening is actually finding solutions that are scalable and relevant to the African economy. And so as Jacob's Ladder, we identified green jobs and green skills development as one of those areas that is instrumental if we're going to address or reduce this gap or reduce this deficit that I have just highlighted. And this is because if you look at multilateral development banks, for example, the World Bank has shifted its focus from what it was previously doing to jobs, especially because of the kind of work that they're doing on the continent. A lot of the investment banks are also, or development banks are still looking for opportunities to be able to increase or develop the workforce. There's a lot of interest in skilling, but skilling is only one side of the coin. We all know what has happened in the last couple of months, about 14 months since the new administration in the US, where there's been a lot of constraints that have been introduced in the development space, especially development finance and more specifically philanthropy. And so even the support that was coming from the philanthropic space to be able to support skills development and or creation of jobs or opportunities, whether programs or anything that would create livelihoods for young people, has really now been significantly challenged. And so the question is, what do we do as Africa? How do we respond to this? Not so much from a health or sectoral perspective, but looking at the young people that we're dealing with. We're not just dealing with an increasing climate change, and for those of us that are in Kenya, we understand what we just experienced this week, where there were significant floods that impacted several parts of the country, and this is something that is ravaging various countries across the continent. And so the impacts of climate change are real, whether they are recognized by other people or not. So how do we make sure that we are solving for the challenge of climate change, but at the same time developing sustainably and creating the opportunities for our young people? At the same time, there's another significant conversation that's going on where the developed countries are investing in AI, and we're living in a continent that is not just looking at internet or AI rather. We're not yet even at the point of saying that we have internet connectivity that would help us create jobs. We are still dealing with the challenge of lack of access to electricity that would then enable us to have internet connectivity and all that. So it's a ripple effect, and we're dealing with a dynamic situation that has multifaceted challenges. But the question is are there programs that are working? People talk about investing in skills development, but for as long as young people are skilled but they do not have opportunities, you're only addressing one side of the divide. A lot of people talk about maybe developing enterprises, but as long as those enterprises do not have a value chain where they are able to have markets, and not just markets within their countries, but markets across the border, then we are still dealing with the challenge of youth unemployment, and we're not necessarily creating the jobs that are required for us to be able to sustain the kind of workforce that we have. And all this in a space where we're being told that Africa will have a quarter of the global workforce by 2050. What then are we doing? How are we preparing for that? How are African governments, African educators or academia, how are the various players in this space actually addressing this challenge to make sure that our young people are not just the most, in terms of the most unique grouping when it comes to the workforce, but they are also the most skilled? And so we, as Jacob's Ladder, focusing on green jobs and the development of green skills, and also working with various partners, including government and many others, have over the years, in the last 3 years, 4 years to be precise, worked on various interventions. And last year, during the Africa Climate Summit, we hosted the Africa Green Jobs Pavilion. And from there, we realized that there are Africans out there who are doing amazing work. There are Africans out there who want to be able to collaborate, to scale what they're doing, to work with other people across the continent to be able to replicate what they're doing, so that the people that are implementing those programs don't implement with the same challenges or the same issues that they had to go through, but based on having built up on what they have learned in terms of lessons. And so we came up with the idea of green skills, green workforce development. GreenWorks4Africa. We do a lot of things, so forgive me. GreenWorks4Africa, which is an annual program, which is going to start this year. It's an inaugural last year at the Africa Climate Summit. This is in collaboration with a multifaceted group of partners that range from government to academia to development partners to civil society, young people, to be able to come together and identify or showcase what's actually working. We always talk about the challenges on the continent, but there are programs that are actually working, interventions that are actually working. How do we fund sustainably the transition from school to work? How do we get the young people actually moving? There are programs that are working in that regard. How do we get if it's in the just energy transition programs, where when it comes to countries that have fossil fuel, how do we migrate them to renewable energy, and how do we make sure that that workforce is actually migrated without losing a lot of them along the way? There are programs that are actually working. How do we make sure that there's repatriation of raw materials as opposed to expatriation, which has been happening a lot over the years, that has been spoken of? There are programs that are actually working. And so GreenWorks4Africa, as you will hear shortly, is a program that will bring together a lot of these best case studies from across the continent to be able to showcase the various programs that are working across the continent. And you'll hear about the thematic areas, you'll hear about the cross-cutting issues that we're going to look at, and the structure of the program. But mine is to specifically, first of all, thank you as the media, because if it was not for you, we would not know about some of these programs that are working. So your coverage in your various countries and across the continent has really been helpful in helping different people know that there are programs out there that are working. Secondly, it's to invite you to partner with us to showcase if there are programs that you believe are working, that you've either covered or you see are existing in your countries that you think should be showcased at this forum. It's a Pan-African program. If you see that there are certain programs that can be showcased, this is your opportunity as well to nominate and also to support us to be able to amplify. And lastly, this GreenWorks4Africa, like I said, is a build-up from Africa Climate Summit, where we hosted the Green Jobs Pavilion together with various partners. But we would want this, because Africa will be hosting COP32 next year. We would want this to be a run-up to COP32. We don't want to be hosting and get to hear what other people are doing in other continents without us being able to say this is what is working in Africa, and not just working in one country. This is what we have agreed as a coalition of actors in green skills and green jobs with the aim of addressing youth unemployment. This is actually what is working on the continent. And so next year, during COP32, we hope that what we achieve this year in Nairobi will be built up towards COP32 in Addis next year, to be able to say at the pavilion that this is actually some of the cases that are working, and this is what the support that is required, whether it's financial or policy or frameworks at the continental level that would help us to be able to reduce that deficit between the 15 million jobs that are required every year, formal jobs that are required, and the 3 million that are created. How do we increase that? And how do we also migrate a lot more of the populace from the informal sector to the formal sector? Thank you again for your time, and we look forward to partnering with you into the future. Over to you, Melanie.
Thank you so very much, Stella. That was amazing. You painted the picture very clearly for us. I would now like to introduce our head of advocacy, Ms. Joan Kubai, who will give us further context into the details and the approach of the execution of this particular forum in convening later on in August. Karibu, Joan.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you so much, Stella, for sharing the vision behind GreenWorks4Africa. I trust that you can hear me, Melanie. Very good. So I'll just walk us through what does GreenWorks4Africa implementation look like, what's the approach we are taking towards this very important forum. And so the idea for us is to have GreenWorks4Africa designed as an execution-focused platform. How do we move beyond dialogue and drive tangible progress towards African green and just transition? And how do we connect policy, enterprise, finance, and innovation actors who are driving practical solutions to come together and have tangible outcomes that they're implementing? And so the discussions are centered around 6 key sectors that are shaping Africa's green economy and have high potential for job creation. And the 6 are: 1, renewable energy and the productive use of energy. Second is e-mobility, green infrastructure, and sustainable urbanization. Third is climate resilient agriculture and smart food systems. Fourth is circular industry and integrated waste systems. Fifth is natural capital and nature-based enterprises. And last but not least is industrial decarbonization, green manufacturing, and sustainable mining. And in order for these discussions to translate into practical pathways for workforce development and enterprise growth, we're going to be focusing on 3 cross-cutting pillars that, if implemented well, they will support the growth of these sectors. And the 3 pillars are: 1, finance, technology, innovation, and market systems. And this will just look around how finance, technology, and innovation, as well as market systems, can be leveraged to ensure that we are growing the sectors. The second one is policy, regulation, and governance systems. And so how does policy affect the growth of these sectors, and what are policies we can put in place to support the growth of those sectors? And then last but not least, we have social systems. And in social systems, we'll be looking at gender equality, youth empowerment, community inclusion. How do we address youth unemployment in Africa from a social economic development perspective? And so these 3 will be the cross-cutting pillars that we will be having the different discussants have discourse on, and we will be showcasing and exhibiting case studies that have either worked or are being implemented across Africa that we could learn from. And so, as Stella has mentioned, we will take a case study approach, meaning we will have people submitting case studies of what is working in those 6 sectors and how did they navigate the 3 cross-cutting pillars. What can we learn from that? And so we'll come from a place of what is already working and how can we amplify and scale it. And towards that, we already have a call for submissions out for case studies across the 6 sectors that different people who are working in those sectors can submit a case study of projects they're implementing that are aligned to the different sectors and are giving solutions across the 3 pillars we mentioned. And that will be also shared, I trust, Melanie, in terms of the details of where people can submit their case studies. We are working towards 6 tangible outputs. So the idea is for us to have an African toolkit for green jobs development. So what we're saying is, can we have something that we've created that different organizations and African countries can adopt towards a roadmap and a toolkit for green jobs? So based on case studies and investment-ready models, we will be able to prepare a toolkit as well as a green jobs taxonomy that provides basic definition of different terms in the African context for us to be able to work from one point. And then the second one would be commitments from employers, investors, academia, and government to expand green job pipelines. And it will be announced at a high-level green jobs development event that we will have during the August Forum. The third is the launch of a continental coalition for greening skills and opportunities, bringing together stakeholders who are working to expand green employment pathways. Fourth, we'll have the introduction of an African Green Jobs Index and accountability framework that will help track progress on the green workforce development across the continent. We also will be pursuing to have new partnerships and to pilot collaborations emerging from the thematic working sessions and the collaboration cafe. And last but not least, we're aiming to produce a forum outcome report that will be shared with the African Union and the Secretariat of COP32 ahead of COP32 happening in Addis. And as we have, I think, spoken about at this point, we're aiming to have a different model. We're aiming to have a different model that is unlike traditional conferences or summits where there's a lot of dialogue. We're seeking to move towards implementation. And so the forum will be structured around showcasing green enterprise solutions through case studies as mentioned. So rather than having theoretical discussions, we will examine real projects and initiatives across Africa that have been piloted, have scaled, or show strong replication potential, allowing our participants to have analytical lessons that they're taking from practical projects on either financing models, whatever challenges there have been in terms of implementation, and what pathways are there for scaling. So the forum will run over 3 days from August 11th to the 13th, and it will feature thematic working rooms where participants will have their sector deep dives and develop practical implementable outcomes. We will also have an open discussion format in a plenary that we are dubbing the Collaboration Cafe, where participants will engage in debates, report launches, and unveil new initiatives and partnerships. So that's the format we are taking, and we will be sharing more information of how people can engage and how they can register in the thematic convenings and also the forum. Melanie, I'll hand it back to you at this point.
Thank you so very much, Joanne. That was thoroughly comprehensive. I'd just also like to emphasize that today's session was about painting the picture. It was an introductory meeting. And we can now, I would like to open the floor to any of you who would like to ask any questions. Our CEO, my colleague Joanne and myself are on standby to answer any questions you might have. But also understand that we will be sharing a press release after this to provide further details and context as well, even as our correspondence continues. So if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand or feel free to also type that question out in the chat. Anybody with a question, please feel free to raise your hand. Now is the time to address them. Mr. Christopher Bendana, I see your hand is raised. Do unmute your mic and kindly go ahead.
Thank you, Meron, for your introduction comments, and also thank you, the CEO. My name is Christopher Bendana. I'm a Ugandan science writer and publisher of Science Now magazine. The CEO, the co-founder, talked about partnerships and collaborations. I'm wondering, as a journalist and publisher, of course, for us, we are interested in publishing stories. So what kind of partnership are you talking about? For example, are you supporting the writing of stories, or just more information on the partnership? I thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think before we address that question, let's just take two more from the people I see with their hands raised. That is Mr. Agina and Ms. Rahel. Just kindly ask your questions and then they'll all be addressed. Please go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. And, hello.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. My name is Abi Agina, financial journalist, and work across East Africa. This is a very timely conversation and incredible work by Africa Works. I'm just curious to find out, in terms of the build-up towards this event, what are some of the opportunities you see for media to work hand in hand with you, and also putting us in touch with some of the key people who might be constituting among the people who will attend, so that we can kickstart a narrative ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. The last person we called out was Rahel. We are really running out of time. Rahel, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. So my name is Rahel and I'm reaching out from Ethiopia. And I wanted to ask the opportunities that you guys have for PRO events for your forum or conference. We are a media company here in Ethiopia, and we would like to know the details as to how we could be involved in the forum. Can you hear me?
Unfortunately, it's unclear. I'd like to kindly request you to type your question in the chat, and I'll give our CEO the opportunity to address the two questions that were asked. Rahel, kindly type your question in the chat because you're not too clear.
I did. I think I already posted my question. But if you can hear me, I can also continue. It's just a very quick question. Because we're based in Ethiopia and Addis Ababa, how can we participate in the forum? That's what I wanted to know as a PR and events team. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I will take those three questions, and if you guys can stay on, we are happy to answer the rest of the questions for maybe an additional 5 minutes. So to answer Christopher, in terms of partnerships where media are concerned, one is what I mentioned earlier. If you have covered any story that was impressive, we are looking at stories that are actually moving the needle in terms of skilling to employment, not just skilling. Because like I said, skilling is just one side of the story. So if you can see stories in your countries that we could highlight, or case studies that we could highlight and feature, we are looking for those kinds of stories to amplify. So please reach out to us. You will receive a presser that will have the details there, and you can feel free to reach out to respond to us. And then Abby, in terms of the run-up to the event, we are having thematic pre-convenings, and these are aligned to the areas that Joanne has mentioned. For example, we have a room that is purely focused on e-mobility, or a room that is focused on climate smart agriculture with experts working from different countries, cross-cutting across who is financing agriculture and what are the areas that are actually moving the needle, or what are the gaps that we are seeing. So if you are interested in a specific thematic area, we can incorporate you in that room for you to be able to be part of the pre-convenings. And then we're not charging for this event, so but we will have a special media room. So Melanie will be your contact person, and during the event itself, you can come in and be able to meet all the other participants from the different countries who will be able to showcase their work, and also their mini side events that are going to be going on, all of them geared towards showcasing what's actually working on the continent. So that's another way that you can participate, as well as you can get stories from us and other people, because we want to create a teaser and a build up towards this, because there's a lot of negative talk out there about what's not working, and we cannot join the bandwagon. We have to begin to showcase what's working and also highlight what's needed. So if you want to do stories that are continent-wide or unique to your country and you need technical input, we are also here to be able to give you that information. So we can partner to do op-eds, to do stories, to do interviews, whatever you need in terms of content as a run-up to, and we will create a media plan for that together with Melanie, and she'll be able to guide you on how you can participate. We're happy to do regional and or country specific stories. And then from a PR perspective, I think it would still dovetail to what I've just talked about. We have to be able to tell our story differently, and this time from the issue of unemployment. We can create jobs if we want to. There's a role of government, even from a political perspective. A lot of countries are going into elections, Nigeria, Kenya. They need to be able to stop using jobs as an angle of getting into office, and then when they get there, they don't do anything about it. Or they only issue tokenism or projects that are not really actually advancing us. The world is talking about robots in terms of AI, but while we're talking about cleaning the streets in terms of job creation, there's a mismatch somewhere. And for as long as we continue like that, there'll actually be a problem. So if you want it from whichever angle, we're happy to provide you the content, Rahel, on that. Pamela, you had a question. I hope that answers you, and if there's any other question, I'm happy.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. Good afternoon. Just a quick one. I've already put in the chat. Just wondering if you've had an opportunity to invite the African Union officially. If so, I'm ready to support the conversation. Maybe you can reach out. We can see even as we have an opportunity to support Ethiopia in convening COP32. So I think you align very well with the work of the African Union in green economy. So thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. We worked very closely with the Ethiopian government last year, and we'll be working again with them on this particular event. We are already in conversation with the African Union as our anchor partner. We're just tidying up, and that's why we didn't share it as an official communication, but that will be announced in the next week or two. And then also with the Kenyan government, because they're the host, and we'll also be showcasing, because again, one of the things that countries do is develop NDCs, nationally determined contributions, but there's no effort around how are we actually developing the workforce to achieve those NDCs. So we will be showcasing what Kenya is doing between a collaboration between Jacob's Ladder Africa, our organization, and the Kenyan government on how we are looking at the NDCs and providing a roadmap for anyone who wants to do skills development or green jobs, enterprise development, or anything around livelihoods. You need to be able to align to this nationally determined contributions, and these are the pathways, these are the highest opportunity sectors according to the NDCs, etc. So we'll be sharing that as well in the course of time and launching it at the event. But yes, Pamela will reach out to you regarding the AU. Melanie, I think we've answered most of the questions.
Yes.
I think that the rest we can, let me just read this last one, because Ivan's had his hand up. How can the youth-led green initiatives and student networks actively participate in and showcase their innovations at the upcoming inaugural? Ivan's excellent questions. We are all about young people, so we actually have young people moderating some of the sessions. We will have them doing debates in terms of showcasing what they think about AI. For those of us who know about AI, it's very high energy consuming, but then we want to know what they think vis-a-vis sustainable or green jobs. But we'll also be having a lot of them, because we focus on green enterprises. So we will be showcasing our young people who've gone through our incubator and other young people who will be selling and showcasing the work that they've done and what they want or what they're selling, so that they're able to be given an opportunity to not just sell, but to meet people who are able to also partner with them, invest in them, collaborate with them, etc. Thanks for that, Evans. I'll hand over back to Melanie. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you so much, Salah, and thank you. I'd like to thank each and every one of you. Very quickly, I know we are completely out of time, but I'd just like to emphasize a few things. That number one, immediately after this session, I will share a press release. And if there were any questions that we're not able to address within the time available, do send them directly to me, and I will ensure there is follow-up. And also, I'd also like to mention that, again, that we are exploring strategic media partnerships, and we welcome conversations on collaborations with interested outlets around coverage of this forum, and what we're trying to achieve here for the continent. And then also, again, there are opportunities for bilateral interviews and feature stories and deeper media engagements with our CEO and the leadership team, which we'd be happy to arrange. So please keep that in mind. And then also, again, today's briefing is the first of several engagements with you as a media. And so we'll continue to share updates in the lead up to August. So please do look out for further correspondence from us. So it's 2:35. I'd like to thank you once again for joining us. And we look forward to continuing this conversation with you. And I'd like to wish you all a very, very good afternoon. And please look out for me in your inboxes. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Melanie. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Have a good afternoon. Thank you.